Hi everyone, welcome to Coding Tips for Combining Communities and ExactTarget. So my name is Josip Juric and I am a software engineer at Nefos. We are a Platinum Salesforce partner in Europe with headquarters in Switzerland and offices in Germany and Austria. And I'm from the Austrian office, so if there are any questions regarding Arnold Schwarzenegger or Wiener Schnitzel, come to me after the session, please. So what I want to talk about today is a few key points that I've learned from a project for our client Lioness. So Lioness is a cashback company, meaning they provide cashback cards and the infrastructure to businesses that are willing to join the program. And if a business joins the program, then every cashback card holder gets cash back for every transaction he performs with these businesses. So obviously Lioness has a lot of businesses they interact with, so partners, and the whole project was about setting up a community for these partners. So the three main points I want to talk about today are how to integrate a community into an existing partner portal, which is not Salesforce based, how to integrate the community with ExactTarget to allow the users to send out emails or newsletters, and how to automatically send out emails with ExactTarget via the API. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A session. So how it all began was Linus approached us with this question. They had an existing partner portal which was not Salesforce based, and they wanted to extend it with CRM functionality. So we proposed them to use the Salesforce communities and basically integrate it with their data on the backend side and integrate it on the UI side with the front end. So we have done a lot of projects where we had to integrate data. But this was the first project where we had to do this kind of a seamless UI integration where the community should really look like it's part of this external portal and not some third-party system. So our solution was to go with an iframe inside this external portal to display the community and use community's branding to give it a look and feel of the external portal so the user thinks it's really the same system. And we've also applied a small trick for automatic resizing, which I'll show later on. So before I start, has anyone ever tried to display a community in an iframe, maybe? Or Salesforce at all in an iframe? Yeah? Was it successful? Not so much, right? All right, so let me show you how our end product looks like. So this is the external portal of Lioness, and it also contains the iframe with the Salesforce community. So if you can't really tell where the external portal ends and where the community begins, then we did a really good job, or this snapshot is really low quality. So this green part here is the iframe with the community. And you can see the community standard tabs, the home tab, you can see the calendar component, so it's just a normal community. And it really looks like it's part of the whole system. It doesn't look like it's some third-party system, right? So if you want to show a community in an iframe which is displayed in some external portal, the first thing you have to do, you have to disable the click-jack protection for the community. So if you don't do that, you will just get an empty iframe. Yeah? It will not display the community. So how you do that is you go into Setup, Develop, Sites, and click on your community name, and then change the click-jack protection level to allow framing by any page or no protection, and then it will work. The next thing we did was apply the branding. So we've hidden the header and footer of the community because we did not want any additional header, since the external portal already has its own header and footer, so we don't need an additional header and footer in the iframe. So we did it by applying empty HTML files for the header and footer of the community. And we applied the same color scheme, basically, as the external portal to the community. And then it looks really like it's part of the whole system. Then the small auto-resize trick I've mentioned. So when you try to use an iframe, you often have the problem of multiple scroll bars. So the iframe itself will have an own scroll bar, and the main page will have an own scroll bar, and that really does not look well. So we wanted to avoid it, and the trick we came up with is use JavaScript messaging to establish a communication between the iframe page and the portal page, So the iframe would resize every time the content of the iframe resizes. So let's take a look at the code. So in the iframe, I hope you're familiar with JavaScript and jQuery because I don't have the time to explain that. So the JavaScript in the iframe page looks like this. We have the onDocumentReady event handler, which calls the checkHeight function. And the checkHeight function retrieves the current height of the iframe content and compares it to the previous height. If they don't match, obviously there's been a change in the height of the iframe content, and we send the new height to the window parent using JavaScript messaging. Then in the next block, this is a window on message event handler. We wait for the response from the main window. So the main window will send us a response once the iframe has been resized. And we then take, again, the current height as the previous height. Why we do that is because once an iframe resizes, the content may also resize because it adapts to the new size of the iframe. So we take the new height as the previous height and then start a periodical check. So we check height every 1,000 milliseconds, and if there's been a change, we send a new message to the main window. In the main window, we have this again this on message event of the window object, this event handler. We expect there the message from the iframe containing the height of the iframe content, and we then just check for a minimum height of 300 pixels and set the height of the iframe to this new height and give it an additional 20 pixels of margin just to be sure. And then we send the confirm message back to the iframe, but we give it a 100 milliseconds delay. And why we do that is we want to give the iframe enough time to adapt to the new size. So when the iframe resizes, the content will adapt to this new size, and we give it 100 milliseconds time. And the last thing we did for the seamless UI integration is we established single sign-on, obviously. So Lioness was so kind to provide us an OpenID identity provider. And basically all we had to do in Salesforce was create a new auth provider and enter all the information we received from Lioness and implement this really simple auth registration handler, which is a really simple class. It just retrieves the user by external ID, and that's it. And it works even in the iframe. All right? So that was the first point, and once we finished that, Linus came back with new requirements. So they wanted the partners to be able to send out emails to their clients. So the partners had client data in Salesforce, and they wanted these partners to be able to filter those clients, create a target group, and send specific newsletters to these target groups. So what we proposed was integrate with ExactTarget, because Salesforce will not be able to handle these volumes of emails. The main challenge here was the ExactTarget API integration. So ExactTarget offers two APIs, the REST API and SOAP API. And the REST API is unfortunately still limited. It has not all the functionality as the SOAP API. On the other hand, the SOAP API is really complex, and it has a huge WSDL file. And it's just too complex and too large to use the WSDL to Apex feature of Salesforce. So what we had to do is we have written our own SOAP API wrapper in Apex. And we have also established another single sign-on with ExactTarget. So let me show you the process of the newsletter. So this is how a user sends out newsletters. In Salesforce, he first selects the recipients which are going to receive the newsletter. Then the second step is these recipients are transferred into the ExactTarget, into data extensions, automatically through the API. So the user is not doing that, he just clicks on save and the API transfers them. We store them in so-called data extensions, and data extensions in ExactTarget are like flexible data tables. The third step is then the user moves into ExactTarget. In ExactTarget, there are already these target groups with all the recipients, and he just performs the regular ExactTarget sending email process. All right, he just selects this data extension then as the recipients. So, since we are also in a developer session, I want to show you the code behind it. So this is a code sample of how to create a data extension or a recipients list in ExactTarget through the API. Before going into detail, I just want to explain you the layers we have taken here. So the bottom layer is the ET API class, which is the basic wrapper around the ExactTarget API. So this is what you would get if you would normally use the Visual to Apex feature of Salesforce, which we were not able to use here. Above that, we have a ET utility class, which just wraps business logic around this ET API. And on the top, we have any code that calls ExactTarget functionality. And in this case, it's an Apex controller of a Visual Force page. So we have a Visual Force page where the user can create this recipients list. And in the Apex controller, we then create ET utility recipients list. And we give it a name, so the user can define this name. And we send this list into ET utility class. The ET utility class then creates a ET API data extension, so the data extension for ExactTarget. It gives it a customer key. The customer key is in ExactTarget like the external key in Salesforce, the external ID, sorry. So you can use it later on for identifying the same object. We give the data extension the name, and we define it as is sendable. If you want to use a data extension in the send email process, then you have to make it is sendable. And then I've mentioned the data extension is a data table in ExactTarget, so we can define the columns of this data table. And these columns are called data extension fields. So here I've created just one example field, email with the field type text and the maximum length 100. At the end, we wrap this whole data extension in a ET API create request and send it to the ET API class. The ET API class, what it does, it just creates the SOAP message for this request. It also uses some helper class, which we call SOAP writer, which obviously just writes SOAP, right? And the result SOAP message is this one you can see here. So we have the main element, a create request, and underneath that, one element objects with the type data extension. And this data extension element just contains all the properties we've defined in the code. And if everything went well, then you have a data extension in ExactTarget. So the next step is to add recipients into this data extension. So again, we start from the Apex controller. We create a ET utility recipients list. We add to this list all the clients that the user has selected, and then send it to ET utility class. In the ET utility class, we create another create request, and for every recipient, we add a data extension object. A data extension object in ExactTarget terms is a row in a data extension. All right. And the way to link a row to the correct data extension is by using the same customer key. So in this case, we assign the same customer key to the data extension object as we did to the data extension. And then we define all the values for the columns using the keys list. It's just a list of name-value pairs. At the end, we again send it to ET API class, and we get this SOAP message. It's a very similar one. Again, we create request, but this time a list of object elements. And all of them are type data extension object, and all of them have the same customer key, which is the same as the previous one. So the problem arises if we have a lot of recipients. So if we have a few thousand recipients, we will hit some limits. The first limit we will hit is the ExactTarget limit. So ExactTarget recommends up to 50 records in a single API call. If we then chunk the recipients into batches of 50, we will soon hit the limit of Salesforce of maximum 10 HTTP callouts in a single execution context. So we had to come up with a workaround. So what we did is we used the Visual Force page with JavaScript and a controller with remote actions. So let's start with the JavaScript. We have the first variable which will contain all the recipient IDs. We then call the first remote action of the controller, which will return us all the IDs that need to be transferred into ExactTarget. So all the IDs of the recipients that need to be transferred. We then store these IDs into this variable I've mentioned and call insert batch. Insert batch will then take this list of IDs. First it checks if there are any left, and then it takes the first 50 out of that list. And it sends these 50 IDs into the second remote action. The second remote action will take the IDs it received, it will retrieve the client data for these 50 clients, and it will basically create a create request and send it into ExactTarget. And at the end, we will create these 50 records in ExactTarget and return into JavaScript. And if you take a look at the last 3 rows of the JavaScript, the callback basically calls again the insert batch. So we recursively call the same method again, and we take the next 50 and the next 50, and in this way we avoid hitting the maximum HTTP callout limits. There is one way we could optimize a bit more. Does anyone see it? All right, so we're using only one HTTP callout, but we could use up to 10. So we could send, instead of 50, 500 IDs into the second remote action and then chunk it there into bulks of 50, and for every bulk use another HTTP callout. But I wanted to keep it simple here. So we've solved the second problem, and then the third problem came up from Linus. So they wanted to be able for the user to define some criteria which would be periodically checked automatically, and if any client of this party user matches this criteria, he should automatically receive an email. So you see the difference between this scenario and the previous. Here we are really sending in real-time emails, whereas in the previous scenario we only moved the recipients list into ExactTarget, and the user should then send the emails. So what we propose, we will create batch jobs to filter the clients, and we will use ExactTarget API again to send the emails. But the main challenge was here, how do we send emails and not only the recipients? So the solution is to use ExactTarget email send definition objects. And the process looks like this. So the user does only the first step. He defines the criteria in Salesforce. Everything else is then automatically done. So the second step is the scheduled batch job, which runs on a regular basis. It does the filtering of the clients. And if any clients meet the criteria, we will continue with the process. The third step is then transfer these clients into ExactTarget, again into the data extension. The fourth step is create an email send definition. And the fifth step is start this email send definition. So the email send definition, as you can see here, it acts as a junction object between the data extension and an email object here. So the data extension defines who will receive an email, and the email object defines what will be in the email. It defines the contents of this email. And the email send definition acts as the junction object between those two. And to keep this simple, we have pre-configured this one email object in ExactTarget. We will always use the same email object, but the data extension will be every time new, and the email send definition will be every time new. So the code again looks like this. In the ET utility class, we define a new object called email send definition. We give it again a customer key, which we will use later on to identify the same object. We relate the email send definition to the email we've pre-configured, and we do that by using the ID. So if we pre-configure an email in ExactTarget, we know the ID of the email and we can use it here. We then need to assign a send classification to this email send definition. A send classification basically defines some additional properties for the email send out. For example, the from name, the from email address, or the IP address that will be used for sending the emails. This is also something we pre-configured, and here we relate it with a customer key. So if you want to identify objects in ExactTarget, you can either use the ID or the customer key. Then we relate this email send definition to the data extension, so to the recipients list we've created. And we do this using the send definition list object, which we assign the same customer key as the data extension customer key. And we define the data source type ID custom object. That's the ID that's required for a data extension. And in the end, we send this whole thing then into ET API, which creates again the SOAP message. It looks like this. Again, a create request. It contains only one object. It's of type email send definition, and it contains all the properties we've defined. So now the email send definition has been created in ExactTarget. And we now need to start it. So when we want to start an email send definition, we have to perform an action on this email send definition, and the action is start. So we create an ET API perform request. We define on which object we want to perform something, and we do that on the email send definition, which we identify again using the customer key. And we define which action are we going to perform on that object. It's the action start. All right. Then we send this again into ET API class. and this generates again this SOAP message. So it contains the main element perform request message. It contains the sub elements definitions, which contains all the objects on which we perform something. In this case, it's only this one object email send definition with this customer key. And the second child element is action, which contains only the text start. All right. And if you send this to ExactTarget and everything goes okay, we get status okay from ExactTarget. The email send definition will be enqueued in ExactTarget, and it will be sent out in the next few minutes probably. All right, so what we've covered today, I've showed you how to brand a community, so you can display it in an iframe in an existing portal, so it looks like it's really part of this portal and not a third-party system. I showed you how to dynamically adjust the iframe size, so you don't get these additional scroll bars. I've showed you what are the basic ExactTarget objects you can use when you integrate ExactTarget, so it's the data extensions and the email send definitions. And I've showed you some code samples from our implementation of our custom ExactTarget API wrapper, so you get an idea how you can approach the same problem if you have to. And if you're wondering where to start now, I've also provided some links. I will put them up in chat later on. So some communities documentation, the iframe resizing code, we have published that, so you can access that. All the pictures you've taken them for no reason. So, and the third link is the ExactTarget API documentation. This is really important. So if you do this custom wrapper, you have to look through all the technical articles of ExactTarget and take a good look at the WSDL file they offer. All right. That's it from my side, and now I'm open to questions. If there are any questions, please step up to the mic. Mic, please.
So after creating the data extension, in the final implementation, you said there is a third point and a fourth point, right? First, you created the list of people in the data extension, and then you created a send email definition and then perform the request, right? So is that being done in the JavaScript using callbacks from?
Okay. No, it's not being done in JavaScript because it's in a batch job. So there is no Visual Force page behind it. So in this second scenario I've shown, all the steps except the first one is batch job. So it's all run in Apex in batch jobs.
So once everything is done, in batch job, once the data extension is created, are you calling the send email definition?
Yes. Once the data extension is created, I create the email send definition and then I start it. We have implemented using multiple batch jobs because obviously we will hit some limits again. Mm-hmm. So we have multiple batch jobs which are connected. So once one finishes, it calls the next one. But there is no JavaScript in there.
Is there any chance of failure? In case of that, how are you handling that?
Definitely. You have to watch out that you implement this idempotently. So whenever you start the first batch job, it needs to act as if it's the first time and if there was no previous run. So if there is an error, you need to handle it correctly. So there shouldn't be any data left hanging around. So that's why we always, for example, in this case, we create a new data extension and a new email send definition. So if there was an error, there may be some email send definition hanging around there, but it will never be used again, and there's no chance of rerunning it somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's it.
Okay. Anyone else? All right then.